Let's answer some more questions. Another good question that a lot of you asked is Istanbul safe? And would you, as in me, travel there? So here are some headlines explaining why I said, there we go, that Istanbul in the last few years has been considered to be an unsafe place to visit. You can see here in January of 2016, there was an ISIS suicide bomber. Later that year, there was an attack in the airport, which killed obviously a lot of people. And then in the beginning of 2017, there was also an attack in a nightclub. Now, while this was also going on, the government in Turkey was going through a major meltdown, basically. There was a coup that started in 2016, and they officially declared a state of emergency. Now, as of today, in 2020, that state of emergency is over. The government is much more stable, and there have not been any more terrorist attacks since these in 2017. Now, I also like to show you this because this gives you an idea of what the US government is saying about traveling to Turkey. So you can see that the travel advisory updated back in 2019 put Turkey at a level 2, which actually isn't that high. I think England is still higher than Turkey, technically. Now, of course, with the coronavirus, they're saying to everywhere, just don't travel. So ignoring the coronavirus for a second, some other things you need to consider about if you do travel to Turkey. Is the fact that there is terrorism, specifically closer to where Syria and Iraq, border Turkey. So because of the issues going on there, they definitely say stay away from there. If you are going to travel, you should travel to the heavily populated areas, particularly in Istanbul. That's really like your best city to go to in Turkey. Here's a fun fact. Anybody know that Batman was a city in Turkey? I did not, so that was kind of fun. They also do say that you do have to be careful in certain parts of Istanbul. Istanbul's gigantic. It's bigger even than New York City. So there's the old city of Istanbul and then the more modern city. The modern part of Istanbul is much safer to travel to. The older city where like the Hagia Sophia and some of the other areas are, it's a much more conservative area, much more heavily Muslim. And so people who are not Muslim do stand out a little bit more. It's still not technically dangerous. You'll notice it's not listed here within the warning, but if you are going to be cautious, that would be the areas to be more cautious in, just because you would stand out more in those areas. They also are pointing out that since the government of Turkey has been rather corrupt in the last couple of years, you can see that the US government is warning people that security forces from the Turkish government have actually been detaining US citizens, meaning that they're keeping them for basically no reason at all. So those are the official warnings. Now, with that being said, if you look at the map, and this is current, you will see like China is all in red because the US government is saying don't go there because of the coronavirus. And of course, now we have even more cases now than China right now. So that will be changed, I'm sure, in a few months. But you can see Turkey is here. And you can also see that it's given this color, which means exercise increased caution, that there are some areas with a higher security risk. Istanbul itself is pretty much about as safe as New York City or London at this time, and even technically maybe even safer, because they have a higher population than New York or London, they actually have less incidents of crime than those cities do. Also, if you're just looking at the rest of the map, you will notice that Europe, like France, Spain, Germany, and England, are actually a little bit higher, ranked still a little bit higher than Turkey is overall. So with that being said, what is my answer? If I had the chance to go to Istanbul, assuming that the coronavirus is no longer in existence, yes, I would travel there, definitely. But I am an adult, and I would not encourage a student to travel there unless their parents really had researched it and knew, I guess, the situation and the dangers from the more previous years. I would chance it. I would not be too concerned.